Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Switch to Life, and in today's video we are going to be reviewing the live action version of The Lion King in preparation for the prequel film Mufasa the Lion King. And before you guys say anything, I am recovering from a cold, so my voice might sound a little weird today. But with that in mind, let's talk about the movie. So obviously, this was one of Disney's cash grab live action remakes, and to be honest, the original Lion King was actually my favorite Disney movie. And unfortunately, I was not excited when they announced that this was getting a live action remake. And then I watched the trailer and I'm like, wow, this is such a bad thing. I didn't go to theaters to watch this movie. I waited until Disney Plus was released before I watched this. And I'm glad I did because it was really bad. Okay, I mean, the movie itself wasn't bad. It's actually really good. The problem is that it is nowhere near as good as the original animated version, which you can tell was made with a lot of heart and soul. This one, it was literally just, let's put live action lions in a movie. This movie was super bad because there wasn't really a lot of emotion. Sure, the voice actors did a good job delivering emotion in their lines. Sometimes it was better than the original, but most of the time it was bad. And the problem was that when it came to their on-screen characters, they had no emotion whatsoever. The characters were just there. There's this one scene in particular where Mufasa is talking to Simba after the hyena attack, and he's trying to ridicule while also comfort his son, and it just doesn't come across right. The animated film was so emotional with that scene. Here, they're just there. The lions just sit there and talk to each other. There's no emotion whatsoever. So I will admit that while the animation does leave a lot of emotion to be lacked, it's actually really cool. It looks like there's real animals being filmed in a live action movie, which is really nice. Again, this isn't actually live action. They didn't hire a bunch of animals. They just use really realistic animation, which is really good. It's nice that it's such a really cool spectacle. In fact, they have a bunch of random animal behaviors that wasn't in the original movie, but here makes it look realistic, which is really nice. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that the animals were talking, and not very good, mind you, but if it weren't for the fact they were talking, I would think this was a nature documentary. The problem is the rest of the movie. In fact, let's talk about the character designs. They're realistic to animals, but there's a big problem in that. While in the animated Lion King, you could distinguish one character from another because the designs are so iconic and distinguished. Here, it's literally just a bunch of lions. You can't tell one lion from another. In fact, if I were to just take a couple of clips, I would have a hard time knowing which one was about Mufasa and which one was about Simba. In fact, you can barely notice Scar's iconic scar if you're not looking for it, which is really bad. As for the voice acting, well, like I said, the voice actors did a good job. The problem was their characters didn't portray any of the emotions that the voice actors put into their lines. And because of it, whenever the voice actors did put in emotion, it came across as really bad. And then there's the music for the movie, which is literally just the same music that was in the original film, except somehow done worse. I mean, it's probably nostalgia, but I feel like the animated version had way better music than this movie did, which is really sad. In fact, my favorite song, Be Prepared, was reduced from an epic musical number to just a speech, which is really sad. As for the story, well, it's The Lion King. We all know the story. It's been 30 years since the movie came out, and 5 years since the live-action version came out. So, because of that, we all know the story. The problem is that the live-action version didn't really do anything to differ from the original. Sure, they added in a few bonus scenes, and really dragged out some other ones, like how Simba's tuft of fur was just blowing through the wind and ended up in Rafiki's hand in the original movie. Here in the live action version, it was blown in the wind into a river where it was picked up by a bird that used it to build its nest, at which point it was thrown out of the nest, and then it fell onto a branch that was eaten by a giraffe, then rolled around in some dung by a beetle until the dung broke, and then the wind picked it up again, at which point an ant picked it up, and then the ant carried it all the way over to Rafiki's tree. You see what I mean about dragging out some scenes? Oh, and also, where was Rafiki's staff when he was trying to talk some sense into Simba? They got rid of the best lines. Honestly, though, my favorite scene in this movie has to be when they added in a scene where Nala is trying to escape the Pride Lands under Scar's reign, as well as seeing how tyrannical Scar can be. He's literally hunting the Pride Lands to extinction because he doesn't respect the circle of life. Sure, they said that was happening in the original movie. Here they actually show it, which is really good. Another thing that they did differently was that they renamed the three hyenas. Instead of Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed, who are classic characters that I really loved, instead they gave us Shenzi, who was a lot more stern and less funny than in the original, but I do like that they gave her a rivalry with Nala, so that, like how Simba has to take on Scar, Nala has the chance to take on Shenzi. But then Bonsai and Ed were really done dirty because they weren't even in this movie. They were replaced with two brand new hyenas, Kamari and also Azizi. And the thing is, I don't like these two because Kamari just isn't as funny as Bonsai. And then Azizi, well, he actually talks, which is definitely not anything like Ed. So the story remains the same. In fact, they pretty much have a lot of repetition in the dialogue, even though they do try to be original with it in some cases. And they do switch up things a bit here and there, but the basic story remains the same. For instance, instead of escaping through a thorn bush, they just have Simba fall off a cliff and the hyenas decide not to go after him. And I don't really like a lot of these changes, but one change that I did love was that when it comes to Hakuna Matata, and when Simba finds the jungle that Timon and Pumbaa live in, there's a bunch of other animals aside from just those three, which is really good. In the original version, it was only Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa who lived in Hakuna Matata. Here, other animals live there, which is really good because it's a lot more authentic if they have to share with other animals. Although, one change that I didn't really like was how Timon and Pumbaa talk about the circle of life, in that it's not really a circle, it's a straight line. There's not really a way that you impact anything anyone else does, which is definitely not true. It's just a line. You're born, you live, you die. There's nothing that you can do that impacts anything else. But one thing that I did love was when Mufasa showed up back from the dead. It's just a bunch of clouds, but whenever lightning strikes, you can tell that it's taking the shape of a lion. And it still looks like a cloud, but again, the lightning makes it look like a lion. But yeah, with all that in mind, the movie is a really big letdown because it's literally just the animated movie, but brought to life in a more realistic style of animation. However, there's no emotion with the characters, and unfortunately, the movie just, while it does differ from the original, doesn't do anything to actually change the story, which is really unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad it didn't change the story because if it did, then it wouldn't be The Lion King. But unfortunately, this just makes it a heartless cash grab, which is not good. So, is the live-action remake bad? Well, no. The problem is it just doesn't have anything that makes it stand out compared to the original. Disney has made a bunch of bad live-action remakes, not just mediocre ones like this, and they've also made plenty of good ones, like the live-action Jungle Book. That was really good. though that could just be the fact that it was one of the first ones, and at this time this one was released, we were like, okay, it's another Disney live-action remake. Boo. But with that in mind, I'm actually still excited for when Mufasa the Lion King is released later this month. I'm going to go see it, and then I will make a review of it. And I'm excited because this time it's actually an original story. We don't know where it's going to go. And the thing is that it's actually different from the original version. We know Scar's and Mufasa's origin in the original. We know that they actually are brothers, and we know exactly how Scar got his scar. If you want, check out my Lion Guard review for that information. But with Mufasa, they're trying to tell an original story that's nothing like the animated versions, which is really good. But that's it for my review. Honestly, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you actually like the live-action version of The Lion King? Or do you hate it? For me, I don't really like it, but I don't hate it either. It's just a movie that exists for me. But with that in mind, what are your guys' thoughts? Make sure to comment down below. And are you excited for when Mufasa is released? Be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can get the notification when I post my review for that. And also be sure to support the channel through my membership program by clicking the join button down below. But with that in mind, I hope that you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we're just getting in the groove.
No, let's leave him wanting more.
Yeah, you've grown 400 pounds since we started.
Meanwhile, I look exactly the same.